All right, ladies and gentlemen, this last video for me for today. So I actually crunched the numbers, and well, I should start off with what the heck caused me to make this damn video in the first place. So if I go to my notifications and I look at my comments, there was a guy who made a comment like this guy right here, talking about where's the insane part here. So basically, I said that, yeah, here we go. Here's the insane part right here. The slight rambling stuff. He writes better than this, but this is the part that I really responded to. Basically, what he's trying to say is that he disagrees with the assessment that AoE tanking, basically what the speedrunners have always said, right? So the speedrunners that speedrun Paladin to level 60, they start telling us to start AoE tanking at level 30, using Seal of Light, Judgment of Light, and damn it, what is it? Blessing of Sanctuary. Okay, like that's what the old Cargo's videos used to advise. I've tested that personally. It's terrible. I did not like it. I crunched the numbers a little bit on that one. Found that the consecration route was better. Even like single target consecration route was better, particularly with a knightly longsword. The math that we're about to do is actually going to prove this real fast here in a second. But he does have a point in this video, and that is that I never actually crunched the numbers on AoE Paladin at level like 42 and beyond. I always just assumed the speedrunners had crunched the numbers and just, they were right on the subject. So even though he doesn't criticize it specifically that I said the speedrunners tell us to do this, therefore we do that, in a roundabout way, he did, suggest that I didn't actually crunch the numbers on it. So it's like, okay, you got me. I didn't actually crunch the numbers. But some of this statement is kind of insane. He's basically, his argument boils down to like two things. Like, paladins don't have any spell power while you're leveling. What the hell are you talking about? A spell power build. Intellect doesn't give spell power in classic World of Warcraft. I saw a big number once using Seal of Command, therefore Seal of Command good. Like, homie here is like, at level 42, crit over 500 for Seal of Command on a mob, full strength stamina, full green gear, no instance, all intellect, increased spell power. What he starts rambling. Some of his other comments are a little bit better. So I was like, okay, I'll go crunch the numbers. I'll do my due diligence. It's Pally time, and let's actually look into some stuff here. So you can see I have a Paladin in WoW Gear Planner. So these are the talents for one. It's a deep rep Paladin. There is only 1 point. Where the hell is this? Oh, come on, I want the other ones. Hey, relax. Relax. I want to go back to the gear. How the hell do I go back to the gear? Cool. Dungeons. There should be a button here. There's buttons here. See, I can open up Holy and I can go back to the gear. Where the hell are my buttons? What have you done? What have you done? Refresh. Are you okay? What the hell's wrong with you? You weirdo. Anyways, this is with the stats. This thing is just bunk, isn't it? All right, whatever. This is the fully geared Paladin. He has his stats. You can see that very clearly because he at least has the 5% increased melee chance. You have to modify the melee crit here a little bit because it kind of bugs out on you if it's not at max level. So basically, you just have to add like a little over 2% to it because every class in the game has, and every mob in the game has base 5% crit and then additional crit, yada, yada, yada. Instead, it wigs out on you a little bit. So we did actually decide that our boy here has about 10% crit, a little bit over that while leveling. Not a lot of bonus gear, yada, yada. We also gave him the best two-headed weapon that I could feasibly find worth a damn. This is a quest reward from Scarlet Monastery, I think. Pretty good weapon. 3.4 speed. Kind of hard to get a 3.8 speed weapon. Blah, 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 blah. But I just wanted to test my boy's theory here, basically, real fast. But yeah, this is all just strength, stamina, intellect gear. I even gave them thick armor kits. Thick armor kits are one of the easiest and most recommended enchant to use while leveling as any paladin, because thick leather is super cheap. It's very easy to get and or make. Thick leather armor kits. They are super, super good while you're leveling. Feel free to put them on everything in its dog. Interestingly enough, the lesser armor kits, like the best armor kit in the this is the second best armor kit you can have in the game. I'll just show you here real fast. Yep. So they got the armor kits here. The best one, of course, is the rugged at 40, and the second best is the thick leather armor at 42. And then, of course, you have heavy leather armor is here. You'd think the heavy leather armor would be cheaper and more appropriate, but since you can murder the Unguro Crater Raptors for oodles of thick leather armor, and a lot of bots and stuff do that, thick leather armor kit is the way to go. All right, so anyways, before I get to the math on this subject, let's just walk through this real quick. So here is our budget. Very early stamina, intellect, AoE Paladin. The only thing good we got going on here is a High Lord Inquisitor kill neck piece. The rings are really good. You'd have to pay an arm and a leg for these rings while you were leveling. Up to date stamina, intellect rings, pretty pricey. But everything here is dirt cheap. You'll notice that I'm wearing a lot of heavy mithril helm. I've got a heavy mithril helm. Another heavy mithril this, a heavy mithril that, and one more heavy the plate mail. Why did I sprinkle in like 4 pieces of heavy plate mail rather than going stamina intellect gear when I keep suggesting stamina intellect gear? Well, because as you know, stamina intellect gear can be either hard to find or a little bit expensive. So you usually look for alternatives rather than the holy grail of pure stamina intellect gear build, if that makes any sense. And some of them that come to mind are Of the Whales, not the worst thing in the world. Pure stamina is not the worst thing in the world. But if you can't get your hands on stamina intellect gear, by far the next best option is stuff that has a green armor value and has heavy stamina, which heavy mithril breastplate, and the heavy mithril gear is required by blacksmiths to make in order to level their blacksmithing. So it's usually very easy and cheap to find on the auction house or to get a blacksmith to make for you in general, though it might be a little bit more expensive to make, but at least you can do it. But the fact that it's increasing your armor is like, it's like the second best thing. Past having enough intellect on your paladin to be able to pull a group of mobs and burn them down and then eat and drink. Having super high levels of mana isn't the biggest deal in the world. So this guy is quite up there. Of course, we're using a knightly longsword. The weapon enchant doesn't mean anything. I just threw life stealing on it because you use this thing into 60 and beyond, so you might as well splurge on life stealing. I didn't factor that into the equation. I did factor into the equation that you might have like a +6 or even 8. The 8 are probably cheaper, the heavy stone ones. Sharpening stone on your weapon. Like, why not, right? And then, of course, I gave, like, a relatively decent and acceptable, easy to get shield. All right, and then, of course, you're using your Major Recombobulator Ray Trinket. That's your safety trinket. And Goblin Mortar is your secondary safety trinket in case things start getting ugly and nasty and dicey. This will just completely end whatever fight you're currently in, just in case RNG doesn't go your way. So these are your 2 safety trinkets. All right, so what are we looking at here? One paladin has 2,600 HP. The other one has 2,500, and I think like 13 or something HP. It's like 48 or something HP. And then 2,681 mana, whereas the other one, has like 1,500 mana, which is still reasonable. The important thing here to note is the armor differences. So this guy has a 41% damage reduction. This is our Seal of Command Paladin at level 42. You can adjust the level of the Paladin down here. And this one has armor is like, 56.6%. That is an insane amount of armor. This is absolutely nuts and ridiculous. And we're going to see that when we jump over to the math, which we're going to do right now. So you can see here I'm taking it very chill. Like, there's nothing special about these paladins. The gear is easy to get. It is up-to-date gear. or roundabout up-to-date gear. You might be using a mix of like, mail and plate and stamina, intellect, whatever. It doesn't really matter. Gear theoretically should be out of date, but we just need a baseline. So no Paladin here is going crazy, right? This guy has one blue axe item, and then everything else there's nothing blue here. Just because there was nothing blue that was good that I could put on this Paladin at the time. And this guy's got, like, Scarlet Monastery gear. This guy's got Scarlet Monastery quest item reward. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Let's move on. All right, so here's what the math ends up looking like. And there's a lot of caveats here. So I'm just going to have to stop, take it nice and slow, and walk you through it. The first thing I want to direct your attention to is the purple bar at the top here. Where I calculated effective HP based upon armor damage reduction values. So, for example, the Stamina Intellect gear with the 56.6% damage reduction has roughly a 231% increase to his HP. So, and that includes like your healing efficiency and all that stuff. So I had to multiply his HP bar by plus 231%. And this is his effective HP bar just standing there with no buffs whatsoever, thumb up his ass, which is 6,000. And you can see he's got, like, compared to the other Paladin here, who's only got 170% increase. This is your two-hander Paladin. You can see that there is a massive durability difference just standing there with our thumb up our butts. When we factor in mana, like if we took every bit of mana that we had on both of these Paladin builds and converted them into healing, which you can do at about a 2-to-1 ratio using Holy Lights, the numbers start telling a very fascinating story. You can see that the Stamina Intellect Paladin is starting to show that he has almost twice the amount of HP that you need to go through before he will die compared to the two-handed Paladin. And that's before we even factor in Blessing of Sanctuary, Readout, and Shield Block. This gets even worse because there's a lot of synergy that synergizes around stamina, around Paladins that don't die very quickly. Because Paladins that don't die very quickly, that's more time for spirit tick regeneration. That's more time for a Seal of Wisdom and Seal of Light procs off of hitting the enemy. That's more time for you to kill enemies, right? Which is what which is the only synergy that the Strength Stamina Paladin has. Durability-wise, is that theoretically, we'll get to that when we get into the DPS, he kills things faster than the Stamina Intellect Paladin. Therefore, he tanks better because he kills faster, like, that whole synergy kind of a thing. But the fact that one Paladin's going to be alive damn near 3 times longer than this other Paladin, all told, DPS is a combination, if you don't believe me, of your damage and time. Like, it's DPS. It's damage per second. So this guy has literally 3 times longer to kill things than this guy does. So he better be doing 1/3 the DPS of this Paladin, or it's not really even a contest. All right, keep talking here. Right, there's more synergies. This is more synergy for your potion to come off a cooldown. This is more synergy for your major recombobulator ray to come off of cooldown. This is more synergy for your more bandages. This is more synergy for your Hodge stuns. This is Hodge stun into bandage. This is more synergy, There's an ocean of synergy off of Paladins when it comes to them just not dying very quickly. All right, are we clear about this? So even on paper, without any of that synergy going on, without Blessing of Sanctuary, Readout, or Shield Block, with nothing happening, this Paladin still has twice the fucking HP of your damn two-handed Paladin. All right, this is a monster. Okay, it is an absolute effing monster. I keep trying to tell you guys this. But let's go look at the DPS. Maybe there's some massive difference in the DPS between A and between B. All right, so there's a lot of caveats in this DPS. I'm going to start with some of them. So when you actually do DPS, in this manner, you have to make an assumption about how long it's going to take to kill the targets in order to actually get an accurate DPS assessment, right? Which is why I assume that there'd be a 24-second kill time with the one-hander, and I assume there's a 24-second kill time with the two-hander. However, as you can see, the two-hander is doing slightly more damage. Let's get, black, blue, black. Yeah, we can use blue. we'll use green. Green, whatever. So you can see that the DPS here of 89 is in fact higher than the DPS over here of 74. But it's not that much higher. I keep trying to tell people that one-handed paladins do roughly 75 to 80% of the DPS of two-handed paladins. It's just what one-handed paladins do in classic World of Warcraft. There's a number of reasons for this. One of the main reasons is that a lot of your white damage as a one-handed paladin is actually coming from just that magical at level 60. If you watched my my King's video, plus 120 strength worth of DPS that you just have for being a naked level 60 paladin for no reason that isn't subject to blessing of strength or anything like that. You know, blah 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 blah. I should also note that both these paladins are not having, they're assuming they're using Seal of Wisdom as opposed to Seal of Might. They're assuming, there's a bunch of assumptions here. For example, one assumption over here is that they're assuming that they have the same recovery time. These two paladins doing what they're doing as stated here in these numbers should have roughly about the same recovery time. The two-handed stamina, the two-handed paladin should have slightly more recovery time, but it balances out with the fact that we're assuming that it's both a 26 seconds. So I'll give you an example. So at 24-second kill times, this is the equivalent. I can basically do 3 consecrations. This consecration here is a rank 1 consecration with Judgment of the Crusader. So what you're doing here is you're running up, you're judging max rank Crusader, you're getting into Seal of Righteousness rank 3, you're hitting the target, then you're consecrating, then you do 3 consecrations, and then the mob dies. This is rank 1 consecrations, and at level 42, which is what this test is being done at, rank 1 consecrations, you're not going to run out of mana. You could probably repeat this process 10 times before you would need to drink. All right. Conversely, our paladin over here, there's also 1 judgment in the mix. Our paladin over here is also only using 1 judgment to be extremely mana efficient. So he's going to go for a mob. He's going to kill the mob. He's going to heal himself. Next mob, heal himself. Next mob, heal himself. He can probably do this 5 times, 6, 7 maybe before he has to stop and drink. So he'll have a little bit more. Probably about 5 mobs before he has to drink, but he has a smaller mana bar, so his mana bar is going to fill faster, right? So he's going to have less downtime, but he has to downtime twice more often. It all balances out to be. These are all very rough estimates. Vengeance uptime is also roughly estimated to be round about 28 to 30% uptime in these equations, which comes out to be about a 4% or an 8% damage increase. That 8% damage increase is specifically for Seal of Command. People keep telling me, but I've only heard it from the guy who's commenting is clearly, an idiot, let's be honest here. But I asked some paladins around. I grabbed at least one paladin and I asked him. And they did try to tell me that Seal of Command does in fact double dip from Vengeance. What they're trying to explain. So Vengeance increases holy damage and increases white damage by 15%. And what's trying to be expressed to me, and I don't know if this is true or not, but I factored it in as if it is true, that Vengeance is increasing your white damage by 15%, but then when Command procs, it's also increasing the holy damage from Command by 15%. And since Command does 70% of your white damage as holy damage, that 15% gets increased, and then the command holy damage gets increased. So it's a double dipping. So this 8% here is specifically applied to Command. And when I got done with all it here, so I assumed 1 judgment to be mana efficient. I assumed Command was getting, I did Command properly. I also factored in that this talent build at level 42 does not have precision, because you just can't get to it and have 5 out of 5 Vengeance at the same time. So he did have a minus 3% mischance. Command is known as Seal of the Crusader for a reason. So for example, first you have to hit the target, which, it can miss, dodge, parry. And then Seal Command, if it procs, also has to run the gambit of miss, dodge, and parry. So all told, it came out to be about a 32% proc chance, 32, 34, I forget, while using our wonderful little 3.4 speed weapon, which was pretty much the best that I could do. Yada yada yada. This it's not easy to do this math, so just take all this math with a grain of salt here, right? But once again, the math comes out. I've done this math at 60. I've done this math at below than 60. Once again, it comes out to be a simple mathematical calculation that one-handed paladins do between 75 and 80% of two-handed paladins. Once you start putting on your spell power gear on your paladin, right? There's some other interesting consecration doesn't even have to be a component into the mix. It's still 75 to 80% of the damage. You can go watch my Everything Seal of Righteousness video if you really want proof of that. Other things that are involved here is we're assuming that the armor of the target being attacked is 40%. That's why these numbers here at the end say HP DPS, because we're assuming armor. If you wanted to know the DPS without armor, we have it right here in brackets. So this is 45. And this one here bracketed is about 82. So before we factor in 40% armor, 82 and 45. This bracket here, MR, AoE, this is for consecration. So we're using rank 1 consecration to be nice and mana stable, but it is theoretically possible to use max rank consecrations and to drink and stuff like that. I'm not sure that'll increase your kill times, DPS, or whatever, blah, 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 blah. So then we get into the interesting part, which is the AoE part. And the AoE part of things looks, is a million and one caveats, but I'll try to talk about it in more detail. Drink water. But I just got done making a video on like everything AoE farming, showing you like high level gear, how to do it, yada yada yada, the rotation. I have a video on the rotation. You can go watch the rotation. You can go watch what it actually looks like for some evidence, but I'm just going to talk about the math after I got done here. Water. All right, so we're assuming that we're DPS AoE farming 4.5 mobs. Why only 4.5 mobs? Why not 4? Why not 5? It has to do with the nuance of AoE farming as a paladin. So sometimes you're using rank 1 Seal of the Crusader and your Judgment to just gather up like a small pack of 3 mobs and then AoE them down. Sometimes you're gathering up a pack of like 4 mobs and you're AoEing them down. Sometimes you're gathering up a pack of like 5 mobs because you have bubble available to you, or you have a blessing or they're really easy mobs or something. Sometimes you're going for 5 mob pulls. So it's like 3, 4, 5, 3, 4, 5, 3, 4, 5 is typically what's going on. When you pull 3 mobs, there's an interesting thing that happens. However, this really depends on is your water, how out of date is your mage water. I should also point out that the best way to AoE farm is you grab the nearest mage, you give them like 40, 50 silver, and they will give you a full trade window's worth of water, and that'll last you an entire gaming session. Why is that important? Because you don't want to have to worry about the cost of water while you're leveling. You just want to like be able to chug, like, if it takes you 2.5 waters to fill your mana bar, you drink 2.5 waters. I'm about to describe a scenario here specifically. So when you're AoE farming 3 mobs, it doesn't cost you your entire mana bar to kill them. It's a little bit of a faster kill, and it only costs you like 2/3 of your mana bar to kill them. Well, the correct course of action is to sit down and recover another 1/3 of your mana bar, jump back up again, grab another 3 mobs, and then burn them down, and then sit for the full mana recovery. And when you do this process of killing 2-3 packs with a short drink in between and then a long drink after, it ends up being about the same kill times and everything as a 4 mob pull. And of course, when you're doing 5 mob pulls, you usually, you're doing a 5 mob pull, you're going to make sure you have bubble, you make sure you have a blessing of kings, not kings, blessing of protection available to you, so that during the pull you can very easily, like, bubble, bandage, bop, bandage, or just, bop, heal yourself to full, bubble, heal yourself to full. It's usually not the best idea in the world to stand in front of a pack of like 5 mobs and heal yourself. That's something you want to avoid, because when you're healing yourself, you're no longer block dodging or parrying, not to mention you're not auto attacking, obviously, right? And you can also suffer pushback. The only way you don't suffer pushback is if you get out of your AoE, your reflect aura, which is a significant chunk of damage. So usually the best course of action is just bop, use a nice big bandage, especially if you're low level and you have access to higher level bandages, which is very easy on the hardcore servers because you can trade for the higher level bandages. So for example, when you see me like doing Scarlet Monastery at level 35 or Stitches at level 35, soloing Stitches at level 35, I'll just be using, rune cloth bandages. Not heavy rune cloth, just rune cloth bandages. What else is there to say? Or you just bop yourself and heal to full, bubble yourself and heal to full. It's super worth it. You can time it with the consecration on the ground. So basically, when you're doing AoE farming right, about 4.5 mobs is average. Keep in mind, speedrunners are psychotic, and they'll do like 6-7 mob pulls, and they will use their Goblin Mortar on those pulls. They'll just have multiple Goblin Mortars and like cycle them out, which changes the math quite significantly. These kill times and recovery times are long. So I'm assuming that we have a 1 minute gather and kill time, and we have a 1 minute recovery time. However, what you'll note is that if we have bubble every 5 minutes, and if we have Blessing of Kings, not Kings, Bop, Blessing of Protection available every 3 minutes, this means that every 15 minutes we have access to 8 bubbles. Like literally 3 bubbles and then 5 Blessing of Protections, right? And you'll notice that that means that we have access to a bop or a bubble more often than 2 minutes. One is available once every 1 minute and 50 seconds. If you get even more into the weeds, those bops and those bubbles activate their cooldown upon activation, and then you get the benefit of the duration. So really you have it available once every 1 minute and 44 seconds or something stupid like that. Anyways, when you get good at AoE farming, what I'm trying to describe is that you'll pull with bop, you'll pull with bubble, you'll AoE farm them down, you'll recover to full life and full mana like eating and drinking. And then you'll begin to notice something weird. You'll begin to notice that every once in a while, you do not have bop and you do not have bubble available for the next mob pull, which means you need to gather up 3 mobs and AoE them down and then drink back to full. And then you'll have bop and bubble available and you can go again. But what is this telling us theoretically? What this is telling us theoretically is that we are actually AoE grinding a hell of a lot faster than this 1 minute gather plus 1 minute recovery timer that we're doing here on this screen would suggest. All right. So if you find yourself being ready to AoE pull again and you don't have bop and you don't have bubble, which is a super dangerous thing, right? You need to take note of that. Only go for the 3 mob pull. But you should also be noting that you are very, very, very much ahead of the curve on this DPS and these kill timers. All right, clearly. All right, cool. So by the time I got done factoring in the math, I also assumed that on a 4.5 mob pull, we'd get about 5 full readouts worth of reflect damage. That number will go up. It'll vary. This also doesn't include reckoning because we only have 1 point in reckoning at this level, so it is what it is. And as you can see here, we do X amount of DPS. The amount of DPS doesn't really matter. We really want to know what the hell the kill times are. In these numbers, I also calculated most of this at 4 mobs. So the AoE wasn't 4.5, it was 4 mobs. And the white damage, it was just DPS, so whatever. The nade damage is at 4 mobs. The reflect damage is at 4 mobs. Why 4 mobs? Well, because I keep telling you that you need to, if you pull 5, you need to kill 1 as quickly as possible. So you're just going to kill the first mob you get as quickly as possible. And so the vast majority of the fight is actually just, 4 mobs, even though we're doing this at a 4.5 mob average. Okay, cool. What are the kill times? Even at these insanely slow recovery rates and gather rates, it's still about a 26 second kill time per mob, which is not as good as the single targets of either of these two, theoretically, and it's definitely not as... So you'd think you'd be getting less XP per hour, right? But again, I'm telling you right now that I am drastically overestimating how much time it takes to do this. And then speedrunners at the same time, blah, 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 blah. The most important thing to note about all this is how hard it is to kill you. It's so hard to kill you that you don't spend a lot of time needing to run away from mobs. You don't like this is why the speedrunners prefer this, right? Number one, there's the possibility of overperforming if they're better and they want to use goblin mortar and grenades and this and that and the other thing. They're using lay on hands on cooldown, lol. They're using a major recombobulate array on cooldown, lol. They're using mana potions on cooldown, lol. Which is what speedrunners will do. They are complete and utter psychopaths. They'll also have, like, not troll's blood on them. They'll have the armor buff on them. They'll be using pots and potions and MP5. They'll have, like, MP5 rings rather than stamina intellect rings. They'll have the food buff that is MP5. They'll have all this stuff that synergizes with what they're doing just to go fast, 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 fast. And they're also really, really good at it. Also, we've drastically underestimated the performance of this build because you're going to find that 2-minute kill times is plus 1 minute kill times plus 1 minute recovery is ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. And as you can see, it ends up being very close and competitive with the strength stamina two-hander and the even one-handed target DPS, at least until your nightly longsword gets outpaced. So at this level, it's fine. Here's the thing about strength and stamina, they don't tell you. Like, the guides don't tell you. Have you ever noticed how often when you're this... Okay, so how do I put this nicely? Notice there is no AoE farming for the strength stamina paladin. The strength stamina two-hander paladin. Like, it doesn't exist. Why is this? It's because when you go from fighting one mob to two mobs, that is a DPS nightmare scenario for the two-handed paladin. They do not like fighting two mobs at a time. Anything over, often they have to run away. Anything over two mobs at a time, and they definitely have to run away. They also have this horrifying RNG curve. So, for example, let's talk hardcore here for a second, right? Where dying... No. Let's keep it speedrunner only, where dying doesn't matter, versus hardcore, where dying does matter, okay? From a pure speedrunning perspective, the two-handed weapon style is competitive with the AoE farming. The problem is the amount of time you end up in 2v1s slows you down, and the amount of time you end up having to run away for your life drastically slows you down. And then when RNG comes for you every once in a blue moon, where you either have to run away or die and run back to your corpse because, miss, dodge, parry, miss, is just a thing that happens to you from time to time with a two-handed paladin. All of that synergizes into significantly longer kill times compared to the AoE farming. So that's why speedrunners insist upon AoE farming being the way to go, by far the best XP per hour, because it is almost impossible once they start their thing. They don't give a crap if an extra mob gets pulled in. They're like, oh, is it a 6 mob? I don't give a shit. I guess I'm just using a mana potion on this pull. Oh, did I accidentally pull an extra 2 mobs? I'm fighting 7 mobs. All right, well, I guess it's mana potion. Goblin mortar comes out to play. A major recombobulate array gets activated. There is no scenario that really forces them to need to die or run for their life. So they are super consistent. Also, their performance does not vary wildly. There is a variance in their performance. Well, you'll notice that you run into a pack of mobs and you kill them all and you come out with a third of your mana bar left over. You run into the same pack of mobs, again, same levels, and you come out with like 10% of your mana bar remaining as opposed to 30%. You're like, what the fuck happened? Well, what happened was a lot of things. Either readouts were proccing all over the place, but you weren't actually getting any blocks from readout. I've seen that. That means you've been getting crit out your ass, but you actually haven't been getting any blocks, which sucks. The other one that happens is you don't get any readout procs whatsoever. You're never getting crit, and the mobs just kind of beat the crap out of you. It's actually really funny, the variance in the AoE Paladin sometimes, but you'll come out of it, you're like, Jesus Christ, what the hell? So you don't actually want, a big thing is, you don't want just enough mana that you can go into a pack of mobs and then AoE them down and then you're good. You want just enough mana plus like 20% to be able to AoE down the mobs, and then you're good. Because sometimes RNGesus will come for your ass as an AoE Paladin as well, and you don't want to be sitting there fighting 3 mobs when you just don't have any mana. When you find yourself doing that, you roll your eyes and use your Mana Pod, or you'll roll your eyes and use your Goblin Mortar, or you'll roll your eyes and use your Major Recombobulate Array. It's not that big of a deal. What'll happen is you just use rank 1 consecration spam until everything dies, because it's so much more mana efficient. All right, cool. What else is there to talk about? All right, that was the speedrunner perspective. The speedrunner perspective is much more consistent and much easier to abuse to increase my DPS than the two-handed Paladin. Let's talk about hardcore. And hardcore is this damn purple bar up here, right? Like, how the fuck do you kill one of these paladins versus the other paladin is at risk of dying almost every game session, right? Literally every 20 mobs is going to be RNGesus is not going to go your way as a two-handed paladin. It's about 20-25 mobs. RNGesus will not go your way as a paladin. Two-handed paladin, so you kind of got to be a little bit careful. I made a video just before this one about how not to die as a two-handed paladin in hardcore. And the answer is to stop being a two-handed paladin and get into sword and board and use double seal and judgment of light with the same weapon that the AoE tanking paladin uses, the knightly longsword. Just because it will cause you to die so slowly that you can get into, if you're going to die, cause you to die so slowly that you can start you get all your cooldowns come up and will easily keep you alive, even 1v2 mobs. But the stamina intellect paladin, he doesn't die for shit, dude. Holy crap, does he not die? I mean, look at this. Twice the HP, 3 times the amount of HP. It's ridiculous. He doesn't. Good luck putting this fucking paladin down in hardcore. Okay, so in hardcore, you're running even more often as the two-hander paladin, or you're risking death, right? It's not like the two-handed paladin in hardcore isn't like, I'm fighting 2 mobs, I'll just fight it out and see what happens. That's not happening. That's a risk of death. Whether you realize it or not, fighting 2 mobs at a time as a hardcore two-handed paladin is a serious risk of death. It is. Because if RNGesus might go fine on the first mob, it might be average, and then you turn to deal with the second mob, and RNG just tells you to get fucked. And the next thing you know, you're losing the 1v1 to this mob, and you can't run away. There's what are you going to do? Run away and aggro more mobs? And like, okay, you got to be able to win a 1v1, no problem. So you're going to spend a lot more time running away as the hardcore paladin, which greatly reduces your overall DPS. Hardcore isn't a race, right? Like, let's be honest here. It's a survival. Survival is your top priority. It's not your DPS. And clearly you can see that the stamina intellect paladin is a survival fucking monster, and his single target DPS is not the worst thing in the world. When 2 mobs decide to join the party, the AoE paladin is not lamenting the matter. It's not like, oh shit, there's 2 mobs, I either need to risk death here or run away, as the two-handed paladin would be likely doing. He basically just says, thank you, ma'am, and AoE's down the 2 mobs, which has a very specific style to it. So basically, you'll be fighting 1 mob, you got Judgment of Crusader on that mob. If another mob comes in, you activate another max rank Seal of the Crusader, put that Seal of Crusader on the new mob that just came in, or you're using Judgment of Wisdom at that point. So you're like, oh, okay, well, there's going to be 2 mobs now, fine. So I guess at level 42, since we have access to Judgment of Wisdom, you would activate Seal of Wisdom, judge it on the new mob, activate a Reseal Wisdom, so now you're double wisdoming, and you just start using max rank consecrations, or you just keep rank 1 consecrating until the other mob is dead. You treat it like it's just a 2 mob pull. What do you fucking do? It's not even a big deal. An extra mob could accidentally come in, so now it's 3 mobs. Whatever. You literally don't care. You literally could have had, like, let me think. You could have been like 20% life and 20% mana when fighting like 1 mob, and then 2 extra mobs just come in out of nowhere. You're going to survive and kill them, no problem. Like not even a contest. You're just going to roll your eyes and go lol, switch to Consecration Aura, turn that 20% mana bar that you have into 2 Holy Lights, and then you're just going to AoE farm them down. Like worst case scenario, you're not using consecrations just to save the mana and to get spirit tick regeneration. There's no reason to run away. All right, cool. So I'm gonna end the video here, and Deus Volt, boys. The last thing that I probably should have looked into is our boys' theoretical at level, literally, he said that at level 42, he's getting 500 damage Seal of Command crits, which I can believe, but let's just see. He also says he's not using a blue weapon. He says he's using a green weapon off the auction house, which I imagine would be 3.8, but it's going to be doing less DPS than this, but whatever. Let's just go with it here. All right, attack power. Now we want damage. So this thing does, not factoring in crit, we'll say 77 DPS. Oh, but we need Blessing of Might. Damn. What does Blessing of Might do at this level? Might. Blessing of Might. Thank you. Requires level 60. Definitely not. Requires level 32. What's the 5er at? Ugh. Okay, level 5. Level 42. Okay. All right. I'm down with it. 115. He might have the points in Might, improved Might, which is not advisable, but that'll increase it by, I think, like another 15%. So we'll say this is 130. Okay, cool. Maybe 134. Yeah. We'll do 134. 134. Okay. So now I need to divide 134 by 14 because that will give me a DPS. It's increasing his DPS by 9.6. All right, cool. So we'll take that 77, and we'll add plus 9.6 just to be nice. Cool. So he's doing about 86.6 DPS B4 armor. Let's assume he's hitting a relatively soft target like a mage. Who mages only have like 20% armor, like the spellcasters only have like 25, 20, we'll say 20% armor when you're hitting them. So we're going to take that number and we're going to times that by 8 to represent a 20% damage reduction. I don't like not round numbers, so we'll just say 70. Cool. So he's doing 70 DPS. What's the swing speed of our weapon? Ooh, our weapon has a damage variance too. Okay, we'll take that into consideration later. 3.4. 70 times, nope. 70 times 3.4. Okay, cool. All right, so close enough to 250. All right, cool. 250. Yeah, so it is possible. It should be possible to get a Seal Command proc. Because if we take 0.7 of that, which would be the command proc, right? This is our holy damage now. And we assume that we have Vengeance rolling, because we already talked about this. Theoretically, Vengeance does like plus 30% damage. So we got to multiply this by 1.3. Boom. So that's our command proc, and then we double it for having crit. And you can see we're getting somewhere in the vicinity of 500. That is definitely within the ballpark of the weapon damage variance, 105 to like 160 on our weapon here. Okay, so that's reasonable. That is a reasonable statement that once upon a time he saw against a very soft armored target, a 500 Seal of Command damage proc. But Jesus, please stop. Listen, you guys, please. You two-handers out there, I love you, but you got to stop coming at me with literally arguments that are, I saw a big number once on my, not even I saw a big number. I see big number on my two-handed Paladin, therefore Pally time wrong. Because when I watch him, I see low number, and low number bad. All right, well, low number, swing faster than your high number, proc more often than your high number, do about same DPS, blah. So you see here, SOR about 17 DPS over here, command doing about 17 DPS over there. Wow, you paid a talent point for that? What the hell? I didn't pay shit for mine. In fact, rather than paying for command, I get this lovely little thing over here called AoE ability, which is like 15 DPS for like no mana. Blah, 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 blah. Also, I'm a literal brick shithouse, and I'm not going to die in a million fucking years. Your dumb two-handed ass Paladin could die 4 fucking times in a row. Die, come back to life, die again, die, come back to life, die again, die, come back to life, die again, and maybe maybe the Stamina Intellect Paladin might be in trouble at that point. All right, cool. So I'm going to end the video here, and Deus Vult, boys.